Hi everyone, I'm going to give you a 5-minute overview of the time to think process. So, time to think and thinking environment is different from our usual exchange thinking because it isn't about one person speaking and the other person speaking back. It's about the opportunity to think independently by and for yourself with uninterrupted, appreciative attention from someone else. So when we come together as a group, we have a 10-minute or so reflection time where you go off and prepare to do your thinking. You might want to plan it, or you might just want to relax and do some meditation, some social presencing. You can see more on that on the Google Sheets. And then it's about coming together in pairs and as the thinker, making sure that your listener has got the basics right. So have they asked you whether you're comfortable and ready to go, whether you need a cup of tea or whether you're all right to get going? And then have they asked you for your signal to let them know that your wave of thought is finished and you're ready for a prompt? As the listener, once you've done that, you're going to ask your thinker this question. You're going to say, what would you like to think about today and what are your thoughts? And then you're just going to take an interest in where their thoughts go. You are not going to try to answer any of their thoughts. Your job is just to try to understand what they are trying to achieve with their thoughts. As the thinker, you can think, you can feel, and you can speak if you like. And when you finish your wave of thought, you're going to give your listener a symbol, perhaps like this. Your listener is going to think, what do they need now to achieve what they want to achieve? And almost certainly, what they will need is an opportunity to think more. So you'll prompt, what more do you think or feel or want to say? And they may get upset. They may go off on lots of different tangents. That's okay. In our session, they have 15 minutes to do whatever they want to with that time. As the thinker, you may finish your wave of thought again and you'll give another signal. And the listener will probably think, we'll give that one more go. So what more do you think or feel or want to say? Once you've finished all your waves of thought, and your 15 minutes isn't over yet, your listener might say, so we have a few more minutes. What would you like to achieve? And as the thinker, you might come up with an achievement. It might be a really clear, summarised achievement. If it isn't, your listener will say, can you summarise that for me? And you'll try to get it down to one sentence. Then your listener, for the first time in this session, will write that down, and they'll write it down word for word. And they'll say, is that what I understand you want? What's your achievement? And if that's correct, they'll ask an incisive question. So they'll ask, perhaps, what are you assuming that's limiting you from that achievement? And this gives you the opportunity to think about and talk about those assumptions. And they'll say, what else are you assuming? Perhaps a couple of times. And eventually you'll come up with a big long list of assumptions. And then they might say, so what are you most assuming? And once you've come up with what you're most assuming, they'll ask you whether it's true, and they'll read that assumption out word for word as well. If it isn't true, they might say, okay, then what is a positive and liberating alternative to that if it's not true? And if you've come up with a positive and liberating assumption, they'll write that down exactly, and they'll say, okay, so if you knew that, insert that liberating statement, what would change? And it's at that point that you might come up with some surprising thoughts and ideas for what you might do differently. On the other hand, that limiting assumption might be true. It might always be true. And then the listener just has to say, okay, so what is it about that that's stopping you? And eventually you will come up with something that you have a liberating alternative to. And then you'll come up with some ways to make that progress towards that change. And then your 15 minutes is over, perhaps longer if you've decided to go for a longer session. And your listener will appreciate something about how you have thought, the emotion, the feeling behind your thoughts. And that's your thinking partner session. Thank you very much for listening, everyone, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.